Welcome back to Matter of Facts Podcast. It is only about a half an hour after last time we talked to y'all because we've been working and turning and burning. We got Rusty here. He's the second time here at Prepper Camp. First time was last year. We want him to sit down and talk to us kind of about what your experience was at Prepper Camp, what you took away from it. Were you prepping before you came to Prepper Camp? What your gateway drug was? And, then proceed towards what got you into prepping in the first place.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So what actually got me into prepping was COVID. When I saw everybody, when everything started going haywire and everybody ran out and bought toilet paper, my immediate thought was, what is wrong with these people? So that's when I went out and started buying like rice and beans and a bunch of seasonings, because who wants to eat bland rice and beans in a disaster?
Right.
So that's kind of where it got kicked off. I always had the romantic fantasy, I guess you could call it, because you saw the TV shows with the nuts on there. Some of them were nuts. Some of them actually had some really good ideas. But it was all the cool gear. Like, oh, look at this, look at that. And I always had that idea and like for it. But being able to actually sit down and understand and apply it and understand that there was more to prepping than just food really is like, okay, what else can I learn? And I already knew how to reload kind of by accident because I was having issues finding ammunition in my home state because it's mostly run by Democrats. So that's what actually got me into reloading, is because I could not find ammunition there. And little did I know that was actually a prepping skill. So it just kind of built on from there. And this is, like you said, my second year here at Prepper Camp. Last year I took so much away from it. I actually got into radio communication, so ham radio, from this time last year. I do have my amateur extra license, so I can talk to anybody, anywhere, on any band at any time. And my wife told me to not come back with any new hobbies this year, because I came back last year with a new hobby with radios, and she says we cannot afford any more new hobbies. Unfortunately, now I just get to build on the hobby that I already have.
Just go to Joel and get a puppy, and then be like, hey, babe, guess what?
I already got one dog. He's an asshole. And
Well, then bring him to Joel, and he'll teach him to be an asshole selectively to certain people.
he's too old for that now. He's like 10. He's set in his ways, kind of like concrete.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, and I mean, that's what we've talked about with all our guests that we've had on and just on the show and stuff too, is over the last year or 6 years of us going to Prepper Camp, was you find that spark. People come to Prepper Camp to try to find that spark. What can interest them, whether they are brand new to prepping, like a couple of my friends this year, or you've been prepping for 20 years. Find that spark, find something that interests you, and you did that with ham. So you dove in pretty hard. Now, and then I think, was it yesterday I was talking to you, and you were talking to someone in New York.
Yeah, the radio guy here who's doing the ham radio class.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his radio set up over there. I went in and asked him if I could play with his radio. Sure, come on in. And he set his radio up for me, and there was somebody doing Parks on the Air, if you've ever heard of it. And I sat there and tried to get through to him, and I actually was talking to a guy in New York from here in Saluda, North Carolina.
That's crazy.
So if you can do that with a ham radio, right now with the grid up and everything great, imagine how valuable that's going to be in a grid down.
Yeah.
Or a grid off, not even a grid down, just a grid off. Hurricane comes through and you need to get a message to a family member in the next state. If you know a ham, even if you don't know a ham, in the community, we're all usually very good people, and we'll do anything we can to try to get a message to a loved one.
Well, and the thing is, though, I mean, correct me if I'm not wrong. I know there's a ham class I took a couple weekends ago with Northern Woods Training up in Michigan, and basically that guy said in the case of an emergency, in the use of emergency, if it's life or death, or pretty much like you can broadcast no matter what.
Yes,
and they can't come after you for it if they wanted to.
So that is true. If it's a life or death emergency, you can use a ham radio, any radio, to seek help. Where you have to understand is it has to be a legitimate emergency, not that you're out of coffee or cigars.
That is an emergency.
Not according to the federal government.
The federal government
they're wrong on a lot of stuff.
They are. I agree. But
they've never dealt with an irritable Cajun when he doesn't have his coffee and cigars, apparently.
Clearly. But if you're life or death situation and all you have is a radio, if you don't have a license, one, I hope you know how to use it. I didn't know how to use a radio until I actually got my license to do it. The license is a license to learn. So back to what we were saying, though, if you're going to call for help in an emergency, it has to be one of those things where you're not interfering with the responders. So there was actually a story up in Idaho, I think. Big wildfire. Guy got on his radio, started calling for help, saying the fire was getting close to his property. They acknowledged him, but they couldn't respond because they had fires everywhere. Mm-hmm. And apparently he got back on the radios and continued to call and started interfering, and he did get in trouble from the FCC and the government for that.
Hey, your house burned down. Here's a fine.
Pretty much, yeah. So that's one of the things. But yes, if you're in an emergency, they're not going to worry about it.
But the nice thing though too is, and some people don't, and I mean a lot of people I've talked to don't really know this, is you can listen without a license.
Absolutely.
Yep. You can listen all day long, twice on Sunday, 7 days a week, whatever.
You only need a license to transmit.
Yeah, you only need a license to transmit. So what would be nice is, and so like I've been researching high frequency. Mm-hmm. So I've been researching building a high frequency system, like a mobile system kind of thing. And figuring that out. But then if you Phil, you and your parents, like in hurricane land where you guys always get hit all the time, it's like if you had a system and then your dad's a ham operator.
Yeah.
So he has a system. Even if you don't have your license, you can sit there and honestly, the guy that when I was the class I learned from, he was like, he goes, I know people who don't have licenses and transmit. He said, I'm not a lawyer, but he goes, get your license just to be legal. But he says, unless you're being a complete D-bag and you're blocking something, you're being just rude on the air and someone reports you doing whatever, he's like, I've never heard of a person being successfully prosecuted or fined for transmitting without a license.
Just a shout out to my dad since you brought him up. Ham extra operator, 4-digit call sign. He been doing this since I was about not born.
Yeah.
So I can actually get a 4-digit, but I've gotten so used to my call sign, and I might just keep it until I get tired of it.
He got a 4-digit because they were 4 digits back then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good reason. No, I think they're up to, let me see,
6, I think.
Yep, 6.
Yeah.
So. But yeah,
So that's what I'm saying is like, but that's if you had a high frequency system, like, or if I had a high frequency system or a system to talk to my parents, it's like, hey, this happened, and if you can just sit there and you can text out a message, and then it can go, basically it can shoot across or whatever, but basically my point of the story is if you set up these communication stuff now to where you might not use it, you might have or encourage someone to get a ham license. It's not hard, but just it's ways of communicating. Because if something were to happen, a storm goes down, and lines go down, do whatever, have it, phone lines go down, whatever the thing is, snowstorm, hurricane, tornado, whatever. At least I know that if my mom and dad, I know they have a generator, so they have power. So if they had this mobile unit, it's like, there you go.
A mobile unit can run off of your car battery.
Right.
That's all you need is 12 volts to run a mobile. Just about any ham radio just needs 12 volts. So, even if your power goes completely down, you've got that car battery.
Mm-hmm. Small power bank with a 12-volt cigarette plug.
Yeah,
those, and they're cheap.
Yes. You would probably have to rewire it to take because radios don't really come with cigarette plugs. But yeah, you just have to rewire it so it'll work. But 12 volts, that's all you need.
There was a guy that was for a prepper net right next to us there. There was a guy that had a mobile, like just in a small box. He had it sitting there, and he opened it up, and he has like a little 8-inch tablet. He had a rollout keyboard, and then like he had his line, and then he had his battery pack, which was just a normal a rechargeable battery pack, and that's what he hooked it to, and that's what he ran it off of.
Account. I can't remember what's off the top of my head. It might be Tech Prep or something like that, but his big thing is he makes his own man packs with hams.
Yes, I want to. I've actually watched quite a few of his videos, and I want to go like a route with that. So I've got the LifePo batteries for it, and my little UHF VHF system works great. So I wanted to start building like a mobile application for like a backpack or something like that. And he's been the inspiration for that because he's like, yeah, I built this, or I had this designed, and you can go to these people and get a bracket for it. I'm like, okay, my wife's going to kill you because this is going to cost more money.
So he is to you what this one is to me, because most of my poor financial decisions were bullied by him.
I don't take credit for that.
And there's another guy. It's the Ham Radio Crash Course.
Yeah.
He does a lot of good videos.
Yeah, he does. I've seen him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does a lot of good stuff. So, but the great thing about the radio community is you can buy, build, experiment. You can do all that.
There's plans out there for a lot. If you look for it and you know you have an idea of what you're looking for, you can find really any kind of build.
I mean,
really,
you can build a directional antenna out of a tape measure.
Yeah.
If you cut it down to the correct length and you get the one little component that you need,
Yep.
you can build it out of a tape measure.
Yeah, the class that I took, the guy had so he had his whole laptop set up, but then he had an antenna that he set up, and then he just had he basically had it to where he set it up, he booted up this program, and it was gaining through, and as he would hit the button, it would pick that up, and it just listens, and he tuned it to a radio station and everything, and like it's just really interesting how he was doing that. And then he had a whole backpack system that was crazy. Look, like he built this whole backpack system that it's a mobile basically, and he has a basically something you find in a car, but he had that sitting there. He had a battery, he had a plug-in to recharge the battery, he had everything sit there, he had everything he needed, and he had a walkie come out, and like he could be mobile. Basically, almost looks like something you find in the military. Mobile communications.
So it sounds like what you're describing is it could be a digital setup, which is very, very efficient, very low power, and I've heard people say that the ham radio community is dying. I don't think it's dying. I just think it's changing. Because it's changed so much in 30 years. You now have digital, you have text message. You could do all that via radio.
Right.
And that was, CW or Morse code, that was the original text message. So
yeah, so what do you see yourself doing next with it? Like, where do you see yourself going with the ham? Like, I know your wife said no more hobbies, so I guess you got to build on this one.
I can build on this one. So I think my next thing is going to be getting an HF radio and start to experiment and play with that. Like I said, I got a UHF VHF, which is great for local communications and repeaters, but HF I think is going to be the next step, so that way I can try to talk to people in other states, other countries, other continents. So that's going to be my next step, and that's going to be another learning process. Yeah,
other states would be interesting, especially you think about our founders back in the day, the redcoats are coming, kind of thing. And then, but not only that, but other countries, hey, there's this, okay, that now this crap's not on the news, but hey, this crap is this, whatever, pick your, pandemic or whatever it is, plandemic, that like, hey, what's going on over there? Oh, hey, this is happening here, this, and this, and you can get like the real numbers. The thing is, communication is key, and with ham, I know they can try to limit it as much as possible, and they can try to block whatever they want to do, and the government can do whatever they want, but it's hard to stop the signal.
It is. And the only thing they can do really is kind of jam it.
Right,
White noise it to death, yeah.
Yeah, that's
right.
It, but you know how you fix that. You just have something set up with somebody else that you want to talk to and say, hey, we're going to this frequency now.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is, like, so you make those connections now to whoever around the world or a different state, and have that communication to where if something happens, if something goes down, you have that communication. Communication is key. Being able to organize is what the government doesn't want us to do.
No,
they don't like the idea that we can organize.
They want us completely reliant on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and call it what it is. From the military perspective, like some of the great generational changes in military warfare that really changed how we conduct warfare and how efficiently we can. There was like mechanization.
Right.
So when we went from horseback to tanks and trucks and everything else, there was aviation when we took to the skies, and then there was communication. The minute we figured out how to talk to somebody over the horizon without using smoke signals, that was a generational shift in military tactics, because now you can coordinate very vast forces very efficiently over a very diversified area. And think back to like World War One, which is probably the last war we fought before communication and modern intelligence really came about. You had to send a guy on horseback to go talk to the next people over, or you had to use flags or whatever else. And the size of the front was controlled by how far you could get a message across.
Right.
Think back to like the Civil War, the American Revolution. You had to send a poor little kid on a horseback to go talk to General whoever or Colonel whoever to let him know, hey, you're supposed to attack at this time. And if the plan changed, you got to get him back on the horseback to go ask again. Now, you pop a radio out your vest, it's got frequency hopping and encryption, and you just go, plan changed.
Right. So carrier pigeons were one that they did use. And World War One, if you were lucky enough, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, one guy had to strap a spool of wire onto his back and go wherever it was, and then you could set up a Morse code signal back and forth. Mm-hmm. So,
and then they drop a shell on top of that wire, and you got to send another guy.
Exactly, you got to send another one. So, I mean, the fact though that we can communicate wirelessly with 12 volts, it can be tracked, but it can't be tracked. I mean, you can figure out if somebody's using your call sign where they're generally at, but again, though, you're not gonna. It's gonna be hard to do. Yeah. It can be done, but it's hard.
Yeah. And talking about how like now digital and text service and everything else, and I know my dad way back in the day, he was kind of on the cusp of when computers and ham started getting together, and you were starting to send data packets, actual files over ham radio. Like, that has been coming for a long time, and that's also very adjacent to what the military is going through right now, where it's not enough now to be able to talk to each other on the radio to coordinate, but they're talking about trying to have direct data feeds from one vehicle to another, where this radar site automatically uploads all of its target data to every aircraft in the system and every ground vehicle in the system and every tank in the system and everybody who's got a data pad in the system, so that everybody knows everybody else's stuff all at the same time in real time updating.
So didn't we just have an airplane go missing that was supposed to be able to do all that?
Now hold on a second. I, first of all, have a hard time believing that the government that can track 100,000 illegal immigrants coming over the border can't find an F-35 down in the friggin' woods somewhere in South Carolina.
Or the idea that they can actually track down, I saw the meme of it, they could track down footage of Lauren Boebert
in the theater.
In the theater, but they can't find their F-35.
Well, they can't find the Epstein client list either.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that's what I heard, that the Epstein client list went down with that jet.
Yeah, I'm sure it was stapled to the tail section. Yeah.
Well, what was it? Babylon B I saw, and it was like they put out saying that the group of soldiers walking through the Carolina woods with their car beeper trying to locate their down jet.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Brilliant idea. Why don't we put the Epstein client list, we print it on a shirt and get Lauren Boebert to wear it?
There you go.
It'll be on CNN in 5 minutes.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Well, Lauren, if you're out there, reach out to us. I got an idea.
Right. But before we get too far off the rails, so I guess really quick, I mean, what other hobbies do you have besides what other stuff do you like to do?
Just learn how to survive.
Yeah.
Just learn as much as I can and try to relay that information. If anybody wants to, shameless plug, you can find me on Clapper at Rusty Shackelford, number 06. I put out content out there. I don't do it for likes. I don't do it for followers. If I can put a video out there, regardless of what it is, and one person likes it, then hopefully that one person is a little smarter today than they were yesterday.
Yeah.
So if I can show somebody how to use a ferro rod, or how to use a Sawyer Mini, or how to use a radio, that person might say, hey, I saw a video, I can remember this. Mm-hmm. That is my whole goal, because the more prepared everybody is, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah.
Because if you look at, depending on where you live, you're 4 missed meals away from chaos. If everybody has a 2-week supply of food or a 1-week supply of food, granted, yes, the government is going to try to come in and make some sort of effort to aid the populace.
And fail.
But if you have everybody that has a week's worth of food, and the government shows up and says, okay, hey, we got food, you're not going to have the entire population flocking to them to get stuff. You can have people kind of like come out as they need it to get it. And that's kind of my standpoint. Like, I don't want to have to rely on the government. I don't want to have to leave my house and my family to go get this food. I want to have it here.
Right.
That is kind of like my idea for prepping. Mm-hmm. So, like, realistically, we're going to face natural disasters. More so than the hypothetical EMP or nuclear. Not saying it can't happen. Chances of it are kind of slim.
Yeah.
Hurricane, depending on where you live, you're going to get hit with one. Blizzard, tornadoes. Things be realistic here. And that's kind of what my mindset is, though, is if everybody knows a little bit more than they know yesterday. I'm not flipping off the audience.
No, that was for Jester.
And that's just kind of where I started with it. Just make somebody a little smarter than they were the day before.
Yeah, and that's prepper camp. I mean, that's why we all came here, I think, was to try to get a little bit smarter. So wrapping this up, so last year you walked away with ham radio.
Yep.
What did you walk away with this year? What's one thing that you walked away with?
We won't tell your wife, but we can't promise she doesn't watch YouTube.
Probably more of like CQB.
Okay.
I sat in on a couple of classes, like the Tomahawk guy, the room clearing.
Is the small unit tactics class still being taught?
I did that one too.
Okay.
So that
was a good one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I went with, kind of more of a self-defense type of theme this year, because I can get that stuff fairly cheap at home and practice with it. So,
okay.
But I did not know that there were events like this when I started prepping. So last year was my first year. The year prior, I think I heard you guys talk about it on your show. And when I heard about it, I'm like, oh, let me look. And the tickets were already sold out. Like, I found out the weekend before prepper camp 2 years ago.
Oh.
And it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going this year. So I made it a point the following year to make sure I had a ticket and some sort of campsite somewhere so that I could come down here for it. And I've actually found out there are prepping events all over the United States. So I Google prepping event, and I'm sure something is going to come up.
Yeah.
And I walked away last year with so many building blocks of just different things and just different avenues of which way to go. So hopefully if somebody comes to an event like this, they can walk away with one thing that piqued their interest, and they can take that.
Yeah.
Maybe, be a part of a group or something like that and say, I know first aid. Well, we need people that know first aid. And can you teach what you know to other people?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of something that my wife and I batted back and forth, because, like, she came to prepper camp with my daughter last year, and their interests are totally different than mine. Like, I'm about at the point of I'm about to have to jump off into ham, and I've held off on it for a while because I've been focused in other areas. But I think the time has finally come. I just got to get my butt in gear and apologize to my wife for another pile of junk in the office. But she loves me, and I'll take her out to dinner 700 or 1,800 times to make.
Wait till we get the guy over here talking about 3D printing.
One look, the last bad habit I got into was inspired by you. Let me lick my wounds from that before we get into another bad habit.
All right, so let me just give a message to your wife. You can get into ham radio for less than $500. It is very doable. You can get the cheaper radios out there. They are what they are. Chances are they're made in China. Just do your research and find which one has the best reviews. And you can get, a UHF, VHF radio for less than $200. So get the license. It's like $35 for 10 years, and you're there.
Hey, Dad, if you see this, I think about
Christmas gift.
I think about to raid your closet.
There you go. You don't even have to buy anything. Just get the license.
There you go.
Yep. So. And then maybe that'll get him to get his gear back out and stood back up, so the next time we have a hurricane wipe out the cell service in our area, we'll have an alternate method of communication.
You won't have to throw the plate carrier and rifle in the truck. You can just call him on the radio.
I mean, hey, I had to make sure the old man and my wife were okay, or not my wife, his wife, my mom. But what I was saying about my wife was, when she came up here to prepper camp, she was super focused into like mushrooms, the foraging, the natural medicine, and that's her thing is. I know all this stuff exists in nature that we can use so that we're not reliant on big pharma. We're not reliant on the grocery store. We're not reliant on the pharmacy to deal with these problems. Like, we have sinus infections, we have cuts, scrapes, whatever. There's stuff in nature we can use that's been used for thousands of years to heal this stuff. And that's her thing. I don't see her ever going down the road I'm going with, getting into ham and being into firearms and being into reloading and all the stuff I'm into. But my point of view is always that no matter what it is that piques your interest here at Prepper Camp, that can be your thing.
Absolutely.
Learn a little bit of the other things, but that can be your thing so that you have that one thing that you specialize in. And when you find your tribe, your group of people that you're going to rely on when things go bad, you could say, I'm the ham radio guy.
Right.
You may not be the gun guy. You may not be the homeopathic medicine guy. You may not be the mushroom forager. You may not be the farmer. But if you have a skill, and it's a skill people need, they will be very happy to meet you.
Absolutely. And if you have the ability to take what you know and pass it on to somebody else, and then whatever they know they can pass on to you, it just makes the entire situation a little better. Because you might come into a group as a radio guy, but 2 days into it, you might start learning basic first aid or basic reloading. What do I have to do? So then that way it doesn't put that whole thing on one person. That way everybody can chip in and do it, and everybody can keep everything going. And I think that's the main aspect, is just don't get comfortable and complacent in one thing. Try to learn as much as you can. Don't learn everything, but 2 or 3 skills that you can pass on, and everybody's going to be a lot in better situation.
So if you had a message for somebody that's out there watching or listening and they've never heard of Prepper Camp, they didn't know Prepper events happen, they kind of been seeing the writing on the wall that things get spicy and I need to have some things on hand to take care of themselves, like, what would you tell a person, if not come out to Prepper Camp, but like to truly commit to this way of thinking and dive in deep?
Probably read like a disaster book, honestly, because that'll scare the hell out of you. If you read, it can, like the Going Home series, you read the first one and you're going to get sucked into the rest of them. And that'll really say, okay, well, this happened, what do I have to do? And even that right there could get somebody to put stuff in their car. So that's if somebody's brand new, doesn't know, read a book, watch a YouTube video. Honestly, I just think there are people that have normalcy bias that don't want to see the fact that everything is going to be perfect, and it's not going to be all that. It's not going to be that way forever. Something is going to happen, whether it's short term or long term. So, that's the best thing I can say. Or, sad and unfortunate, go through a disaster. Be completely unprepared and realize just how unprepared you are. And maybe that will be the fire for somebody to start prepping in their apartment, in their closet. A week's worth of freeze-dried food and a couple cases of water, and you'll survive. So that's the best thing I can say.
Yeah.
That's a good way to wrap it up.
Well, there's a sales pitch, ladies and gentlemen. If you've been fortunate enough to live most of your adult life in relative comfort and safety and haven't had a really bad day, check out a prepping book. Going Home series is good. Franklin Horton's books are really good. The impetus for Franklin's first book was like nationwide grid failure from a coordinated terrorist attack. And just to put it out there, I talked to a person who worked for the electric company for 38 years and floated that scenario by them.
Yeah, you did a show about it.
Yep.
I actually went. Was he the one that did the video?
No, he's off social media. He's
No. There was one person I listened to. I can't remember the name of it. I think you can find it on Nat Geo, but it's about America's power grid and how fragile our power grid is.
Yeah. Well, when I floated Franklin's scenario by him, he said not only is that plausible, that's probably what's going to actually end up happening. Like, maybe not a terror attack, but he said the grid is so overloaded and so fragile, it's no longer a matter of if it pops, but how long till it pops.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's a question of when.
Yes.
But we've got to stop using fossil fuels and start using electricity, electric cars. Yeah, our power grid is fantastic.
I
I
know. And while we're at it, let's eat bugs and live in pods, because
not happening.
Not happening. I will stick to red meat and bacon and gas-powered vehicles for as long as humanly possible. But the point remains. I think you're right. I think people do need to kind of open their eyes up, and if prepper fiction is the gateway drug, dip your toe into that for the entertainment purposes, and hopefully it gets your gears turned about, if I was in that weird situation, how would I dig my way out of it? Because in most of these books, they're written by people who are preppers and have that mindset, and they kind of walk you through the fiction.
Right.
These are the things you probably ought to think about. You probably ought to think about having all this stuff already prepared. You should probably have a checklist of what to do to get when the grid goes down so you can get things stood back up. These are the things you have to do in the intervening days or weeks or whatever to continue to sustain yourself. And let that kind of be your gateway, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Or come to prepper camp.
Come to prepper camp. You will walk away with it. You will walk away with more knowledge than what you came here, and hopefully you'll walk away with an interest in a hobby to spend buku money on and piss off your spouse.
And you meet weird people.
I would look.
I'm calling myself weird. It's
We
tongue-in-cheek.
are normal. Everybody else is weird. Right?
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I call myself the tinfoil hat weirdo. But my point of view is like, look, I prep for hurricanes, I prep for floods, I prep for tornadoes. You can't tell me all that's crazy because I've lived through enough of them.
Absolutely.
Like
And where I'm at, our weather is weird. We get hurricanes, tornado. We get the occasional tornado, blizzards, floods. We get all of it. So it's just like, okay, what is it this month?
yeah.
Just best thing.
Is it apocalypse month yet, or is that next month?
Oh, we have apocalypse a year where I'm at because we have hurricane season, we have blizzard season, we have flood season, we have it all. So it's just one constant state of fear. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and roll this one out the door. Matter of fact, this podcast is going to head out the door. Be another interview at some point today, maybe two. God only knows. We'll just have to wait and see how this day shapes up. But Rusty, thanks for coming on, man. Best of luck with your content. Definitely keep in touch with us.
I will.
Because we'd love to have you back on the show when it's a little more of a controlled environment. We have a little bit more time to get a little deeper in.
Absolutely. How can I get in contact with you?
I will sort that out as soon as I hit that button.
Fantastic.
All right.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.